What's going on, everybody? Kalipis Tech here, coming back at you with another video. This is pros and cons for the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G. In this video, I'm going to be giving you some of the strengths and weaknesses of this phone to help you decide whether or not it's the right one for you. Now, before we go any further, I do want to remind you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It helps out the channel a lot. And if you want to learn more about the phone, be sure to check out my full review and tips and tricks videos as well. But with that being said, let's get started. So my first pro for this phone is that, as the name suggests, it's a 5G phone. Now today in 2022, 5G phones are getting more and more affordable. When they first came out, they were really only flagship phones. But now we have phones like this and phones like the T-Mobile Revel V Plus 5G, the Cricket Dream 5G, and several others that are really affordable, and this phone is no exception. Now, as this phone becomes more and more available with different carriers, the price and availability will be changing, but most likely it's going to become more and more affordable over time. But with that being said, with 5G becoming more and more important, being able to get a phone like this at a really reasonable price that is actually 5G is a really nice thing. My second pro for the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G is that it has a large battery. This phone has a 5000 mAh battery that supports 15 watt fast charging, so these battery specs for a phone in this price range are really good. With the large battery, you're going to get a lot of life throughout the day, even if you use it fairly heavily. So if you have a more mobile lifestyle where you don't have a lot of time to charge your phone, but still need to use it throughout the day, this is going to be a nice advantage because you're most likely not going to have to charge it until the nighttime unless you're using it really heavily. Another cool thing about having a large battery is that as time goes on, all batteries are going to degrade, but with a battery like this, since it's on the larger side, it's not going to degrade as quickly. So as a result, you'll be able to keep the phone for much longer without having to replace it. So if you like to keep the same phone without buying a new one for a long period of time, the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G is going to be a great choice for that. Now, another cool thing about this phone's battery is that it supports 15 watt fast charging, and that's going to allow you to charge up your phone a lot faster. So again, back to the mobile lifestyle, if you don't have a lot of time to charge your phone, having a phone that you can use fast charging with is going to be a nice advantage. My third pro for the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G is that it has NFC. In case you don't know what it is, NFC is the technology behind contactless mobile payment services like Google Pay. These features are becoming more and more popular and more widely used as time goes on, especially today in 2022. So having a phone that doesn't have NFC is a big drawback because, of course, then you're going to be missing out on that feature. And in my opinion, it's really convenient. In 2022, I would think this feature would be available with pretty much every modern smartphone, but unfortunately, in the lower end, there's still several phones that don't have it. So if you do like to use contactless mobile payment services like Google Pay, the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G is going to be a good option. My fourth pro for the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G is that it has a nice display. Now this phone has a 6.5-inch 90Hz PLS TFT display with a resolution of 720p, a PPI of 270, an aspect ratio of 20:9, and a screen-to-body ratio of about 81.1%. So despite not being 1080p or anything, this display has a pretty nice sharp image, and the colors look really bright and bold, and overall, compared to the average phone in its price range that usually only has a regular LCD display, the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G's display is really bright. In addition to this, at 6.5 inches, despite not being the largest display out there, it's still large enough to be good for content consumption. So if you're streaming videos, viewing photos, playing games, even just reading, things are of course going to show up larger on here, making everything easier to see. Another cool thing when it comes to reading and video streaming specifically is that the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G does have a decently tall form factor, so when you're reading, more stuff is going to fit on the screen, meaning you won't have to scroll as much. And when you're streaming videos, it's going to have a nicer, more cinematic look. Having a 90Hz display means the movement on the screen is going to be a little bit faster and smoother than the standard 60Hz display. You probably can't really tell a whole lot in this video, but it definitely does make a difference when you're consuming a kind of content with movement on the screen, like playing a game or watching a video. My fifth pro for the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G is the high quality camera. So up front here, we got a 5 megapixel front facing camera in a water drop notch. On the back here, we got a triple camera setup with a 50 megapixel main camera, a 2 megapixel macro camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera for portrait mode. So while it's missing some features like an ultra-wide camera, the main camera is really high quality and it has a nice depth sensor for portrait mode. So if you like to take regular photos for social media or something like that, this camera is going to be real good for that. In addition to this, you can shoot in up to 1080p in both the rear and front cameras for video. So while this phone doesn't have the best microphone for actual normal videos, you can get some real good B-roll shots with it. To give you an idea of what this camera can do, this is a photo taken with the rear camera. As you can see, this is a real nice photo. The details are real professional, the colors look really nice, and everything is really bright in the photo in general. So if you're looking for a camera to take some nice photos, whether you're posting on social media or maybe for work, maybe you're a real estate agent and you need some photos of a property or something like that, the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G is going to be a great option for taking photos. So now that we've gone over some of the good things about this phone, let's go over some of the not so good things. My first con for the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G is the storage. Now at 64 gigabytes of internal storage with microSD card expansion, you might think that that's actually not really that bad, and in a sense you're right, but at the same time, in this price range, especially for a 5G phone, there are plenty of phones that have 128, and in this day and age, with apps, the system, and data in general just getting larger and larger, more storage is becoming more important as time goes on. And in 2022, I do feel like every phone should have at least 128 gigabytes. I mean, even the iPhone that was notoriously bad for storage in its base model went from having 64 gigabytes in the lowest version of the iPhone 12 to 128 in the lowest version of the iPhone 13. Now, of course, that's a flagship phone, so it might be a little bit different. But again, there are plenty of phones that are the same price or even cheaper than this phone that do have double the storage. So I do think that having a little bit more internal storage would be a nice thing. My second con for the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G is the processor. Now, this phone is getting 4 gigabytes of RAM with the MediaTek Dimensity 700 5G processor. And in and of itself, this processor is actually pretty good. But the thing is with this phone, it's just not really that fast. I ran a Geekbench 5 benchmark test on this phone, and it came back with a single core score of 467 and a multi-core score of 1111. Now again, just in and of itself, this phone is really not that slow. But again, for a 5G phone with this processor, I feel like it should be a lot faster. Now, I've done several comparisons with this phone on this channel, compared to stuff like the Samsung Galaxy A32 5G, the Cricket Dream 5G, and several others. And all those phones are significantly faster than this. In fact, even when I compared this phone to the Samsung Galaxy A03s, it was faster, but it wasn't nearly as much faster as I thought it would be. So in general, this phone is not bad for regular activities, like browsing the web, going on social media, streaming videos, that kind of stuff. But if you want to do more high-end activities, like mobile gaming, especially with graphics intensive stuff, or if you're just going to be on your phone a lot, I would look into getting a phone with a little bit more processing power, because for a 5G phone, this processor for whatever reason just isn't that strong on this phone. My third con for the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G is that there's no ultra-wide camera. Now, like we talked about in the pros, it does have a really high quality main camera, but with a 5G phone that already has some nice features, I wish this phone had an ultra-wide camera too. There are plenty of phones that are less expensive than this one that do have an ultra-wide camera and have a similar camera quality in general. And nowadays, an ultra-wide camera is such a common feature that not having one was quite a drawback. There's so many situations when an ultra-wide camera would be useful. If you're going to be taking pictures of lots of different things, an ultra-wide camera can be really useful in real-life applications. So overall, if you do like to take nice photos, you can get by with this phone. In fact, its main camera is really good. But if you want to take photos of scenery, or maybe group photos or large objects or something like that, then you might want to look for a phone with an ultra-wide camera, because unfortunately, for whatever reason, this phone doesn't have one. My fourth con for the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G is that there's no wireless charging. Now, this isn't a huge con because not every phone in this price range has it, but at the same time, just keep in mind that this is not just an exclusive flagship feature. There are plenty of low-end phones that do have wireless charging, and I think it's a nice thing to have. It's not even just about convenience like some people think it is, because let's say your charging port breaks. If you don't have wireless charging, especially on a lower end phone, you're probably just going to have to throw it out and get a new one. But if you do have wireless charging, you can use a wireless charger instead of your charging port and keep your phone for a little bit longer. But overall, I do wish more phones in this price range had wireless charging. My fifth con for this phone is that there's no dust and water resistance. Now again, this is a feature that not every phone that's not a flagship phone has, but I still wish that phones like this that are still pretty nice did have. In real life, we get into plenty of situations where our phones could be exposed to different things, like dust and water. Maybe you're working on a construction site or something like that where there's lots of dust and dirt, or working near water. The list really goes on. Nowadays, with so many people in so many different environments, I do think dust and water resistance would be a nice thing to have. But those were my pros and cons for the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G. Despite a few shortcomings, overall I do think this phone is a really good device that provides a lot of value in 2022. Again, if you want to learn more about it, be sure to check out my full review and tips and tricks videos on the channel. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you found this information useful as well. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button, and as always, I will see you in the next one.